The Las Vegas Raiders have just signed quarterback Desmond Ritter, and I'm really excited about it. This move showed that the Raiders are committed to making this season count and are aiming to win games. We'll also touch on Maxx Crosby later, who has expressed his loyalty to the Raiders despite trade rumors. Now, back to Ritter. He was picked from the Arizona Cardinals practice squad, and I believe this is a smart choice. While I don't think Ritter will be a superstar right away, he brings some hope and potential to the team. Ritter, a former third-round pick, was chosen by the Atlanta Falcons coach Arthur Smith for his talent. Although he faced challenges in his first 2 years, only scoring 12 touchdowns with 12 interceptions, he showed promise by winning 6 games last season. What excites me about Ritter is his potential. He's faster and more explosive than the current Raiders quarterbacks. Imagine the plays he could make with his legs. He has a powerful arm too, which could open up the offense. Right now, the Raiders have Gardner Minshew as their starting quarterback and rookie Carter Bradley backing him up. While Bradley has looked good in preseason, Ritter's NFL experience could give him the edge. We've seen players like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield rise again after being written off. And while Ritter's path might be different, it's encouraging that the Raiders are looking to the future and finding a quarterback who can succeed. Sure, Ritter might need a couple of weeks to learn the playbook, but I'm eager to see what he can bring to the team. Right now, it feels like the team is just going through the motions. Arthur Smith's offensive scheme with the Falcons is pretty similar to what Luke Getsy runs, especially in terms of formations and passing concepts. The terminology will be different, so Ritter will need to get used to that. But I really like this signing. He's a former third-round pick, and there's a lot of potential in this kid. When I watched his preseason tape from the Cardinals, I saw a lot of upside. He's capable of making reads and isn't afraid to throw the ball deep. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is debatable. Just look at Gardner Minshew, who had a lot of turnovers. But I believe that playing and gaining experience can help a quarterback improve, especially if they have traits that can be developed. The Raiders don't need to win 15 games this season. They just need to be consistent and win a few key games. If they can string together 2 or 3 wins, they could find themselves at 5 wins and 4 losses, or even 6 and 7. Sneaking into the playoffs. I'm not saying this will definitely happen, but it's a realistic possibility. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the quarterback situation. Some people think the Raiders might not draft a quarterback this offseason, despite the potential of this year's class. I've heard from others who believe this class might actually be weak. Many of the top quarterbacks are juniors who will likely return to school, so we might only see 1 first-round prospect. Shatter Sanders. Some even question if he'll go in the first round. This means the Raiders might have to wait another year to find their quarterback. I know that might be tough to hear, but if the Raiders are sticking with Antonio Pierce, do they really want to draft a quarterback who might not pan out? Unless they get a top pick, they might only find 1 first-round caliber QB. At this stage, it feels early to make any decisions. The Raiders need to focus on winning games and figuring out their next steps. Maxx Crosby had some interesting comments recently, but before we dive into that, let's talk about the Raiders' signing of wide receiver Terrence Marshall. This is an important move that deserves more attention. Since trading away Davante Adams, the roles among our receivers have shifted. In simple terms, you usually have a top receiver, like a tight end, and then a solid number 2. However, not every second receiver is truly a number 2. For instance, Trey Tucker and Brandon Cooks are more like slot receivers who can run deep but aren't reliable as number 2s. After losing Davante, we had Jacoby as our number 2, but he's been injured. Once he returns, the team will improve significantly. However, we still need a solid number 2 receiver. Trey Tucker hasn't shown he can fill that role. Terrence Marshall has the potential to step in as a true number 2, which the Raiders desperately need. We need someone who can beat coverage and take some pressure off our top guy. It doesn't mean Tucker isn't a good player. His speed is a huge asset, but putting him in situations where he runs routes without getting the ball isn't the best use of his talent. It would be smarter to use his speed and motion to keep defenses on their toes. I really like the signing of Terrence Marshall. He's not a superstar receiver or one of the top players in the NFL, but he's solid. In his second year, he had 490 yards on just 28 catches, which shows he can make an impact. The Raiders need players who can fit specific roles, and as a number 2 receiver, Marshall can run routes that draw coverage in the right way. Right now, Brock Bowers is the top option for the Raiders, and when Jacoby Myers returns, he'll take the number 2 spot. We need someone to run certain routes effectively, and I believe Terrence Marshall can help with that. We'll also have Trey Tucker contributing in his own way, so it's exciting to see the Raiders adding new talent. Now, let's talk about Maxx Crosby. Recently, he was asked about rumors of a trade. He shared his feelings with his teammates, saying he wants to stay with the Raiders. He expressed it clearly. "I want to be a Raider." He's been open about his love for the team and the organization, which is refreshing compared to some players who have been less sincere. Maxx Crosby is different from other players. If he wanted to leave, he wouldn't let it drag on. He would make it clear right away. His commitment to the Raiders is strong, and he wants to help turn the team around. Some people speculated about him being traded, especially after the Davante Adams trade. But Crosby isn't going anywhere. There was even a moment when he reposted something on Instagram that said, "Come home," about the Eastern Michigan football field named after him. Some took that as a hint he might want to join the Lions. But I don't think that makes sense. The Raiders have talented players, and Crosby is young and wants to be part of the team as they rebuild. Next season could bring changes with new coaches and potential superstar quarterbacks. The Raiders are not far from being a competitive team. Unlike the Carolina Panthers, who struggle to name a single standout player, the Raiders have several all-pro talents, including Maxx Crosby. We do need a strong offensive coordinator and a leader at quarterback. But if we get those pieces, the Raiders can quickly turn things around. I'm hopeful that Desmond Ritter can help lead the team to some wins, even if they don't make the playoffs. The key is to show progress and build for the future. If this draft class doesn't have a great quarterback, we might stick with Ritter for another year. We'll see what happens with players like Aiden O'Connell when he returns. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time for more updates.